Have you tried the complete example now? So you practiced the complete concept of to do application. Any issues are there? Everyone. So everything working fine, right? So no issues, right? So once we do this, means we learned how to create a interface for handling basic CRUD operation, insert, update, delete, and all this. Now we need to, I told you that we need to make it industry ready, because lot of techniques that we implemented are not good for real time. We should not do in that way. Some changes we need to do. So those we will learn where the issues are there, why they are not good, what is issue. I will explain that. For that, first you need to know a very important concept. You remember I explained from the beginning of our sessions, I explained first how React application starts. You remember in the first session when we created a project, in that session, I explained how project works. Means how uh, app.jsx will come and render information. I explained. That means two designs we learned actually. So we discussed about initial application flow. We discussed initial application flow. If I have the diagram, yeah, initial application flow, I think shown, yeah, yeah, basic application flow. This I explained. I already shared this with you. In the first session, I explained how the basic flow works. React basic flow. React basic flow, what it is, your project started and you open browser and request 5173, then it will render index.html. In index.html, it loads static DOM. After loading static DOM, it will load main.jsx. Main.jsx will load React core library, React virtual DOM library, and Babel. Babel is compiler. Na? So after that, it loads all the components. After loading the components, it creates a virtual DOM. After creating virtual DOM, what it will do? It will render app component. The actual static DOM is the process of converting static DOM to dynamic DOM. We call it as what? Bootstrap. That is the first level flow I explained you. After that, how a component is requested, I showed in routing. In routing, I showed you how component is requested. Where is it? In routing, I explained how component is requested. Here, am I right? That means you make a request for login, then request will go. It will use a routing engine. Routing engine will verify whether requested path available or not. If requested path is available, then it loads that component and renders the component. It is going to load and render the component. It's going to do that. This is another second level. This is initial application flow and initial request for component using route. This also we discuss how component is delivered. But now we should know when you requested login. So login component loads and component will uh, display the UI. It will allow interactions and it will dispose when we move to another component. Once you finish login, you are going to dashboard, then login component is destroyed and dashboard component will come. That means what will happen in every component from component start to component end. When a component starts, when we request a component, when a component ends, when we change from one component to another. So you requested login component starts. When it will end, when you move from login to dashboard, login deleted and dashboard will start. What is the scope of every component? Every component have a start and end. What will happen in this phase? We will see. Because in interviews for little bit experienced people, these questions are asked. Let's see what will happen. Actually, we call as a component life cycle. We will see the component life cycle. First two diagrams are already there with you. Today, one more time, I will put all of them in one place. You can check them. Already we shared it in the beginning, we discussed. No? Component life cycle indicates how a component starts and ends, how a component is going to start, how it is going to end. Component start and end. Let's see what will happen in all the stages. Actually, means in simple terms, every component have three phases: mount, update, and unmount. Means in simple, if anyone asks what are the phases of a component, then you should say three. Every component have three phases: component mount phase, component update phase, unmount. We have three phases. So see what will happen. First important, it's a very major concept in interviews. Let's see here. This is a request for component. Generally, the request for component from the client, it will be like, what is it? HTTP :/ localhost some 5173. Any port number, just I will give port /login. That means you are requesting a component called login. So that is the request for component login. From browser, usually we do that. When a component request comes, how it is verified, already we know. I explained routing flow. How it is verified? The request will go to routing engine. Routing engine will check in the route table. Is that route path available? If available, then it will load. So first point is here the first phase when we request a component. So this is the first phase. In first phase, what will happen is requested component is created. That means the requested component is created in the first phase. You may ask, like, component is already created. So when I request, why it will create? Component is created means a component object is created. Through that component object, you can access a component. You know that a class is having some members. How you access the class members? In a dynamic memory, class members are accessed by using an instance of class. If it is a static class, we can access directly by class name. If it is a dynamic, then we can access using an instance. That means a component that you are watching is not, component is a function. Component is one function. We are not directly accessing the function. We are accessing function through an object. That means actually, so here I will show you. Generally, that points here, where is it? This is our app. Yeah. So I will show you, this is not our app. This is to do application. Previous application is so I will just use this to do application just roughly. I will add a sample JS folder and demo HTML page. Just I'm showing some HTML JavaScript logic. Suppose we have a script. So we have a function. Login is a function. Now in this login function, so we want to handle certain objects. We can create an object using login. We can create an object. That means, JavaScript is not a OOP language. It supports some features of OOP. A function as a pseudo class. That means you can use function as a class. It is not a class, but it is a pseudo class. Its members. You know that you learned in JavaScript function chaining, right? You learned function chaining. That means it can return one object. And what is function chaining? You have some method one. What it can return this. Am I right? You learned function chaining. That means function will allow this. What is the concept here? Through OBJ, we can access the method. We can use the methods. I told you, if you learned, JavaScript has chaining of functions. Chaining of functions. So actually, whenever you create an function, because component is a function, component function, how it is accessed? First, an instance is created. That means a component instance is created. So what is the first step here is component created. In created, what will happen? Let's see. So first point, component object is created. That is the first phase. When we request a component object is created. Okay, tell me what else will happen in this phase? You are learning so many, you learned already so many concepts. You have seen how we use a component, right? So now when a component is requested, along with component, what will happen? When a component is created, what else will happen? Component object is created. That's the first one. What else will happen? The next thing is very important is, if you are using a component, after creating the component, for every component, a local state is configured. For every component, a local state is defined. Component have a local state. What is the scope of that state? It is accessible from component start to component end, and it is accessible only to that component. It is not accessible to its child. It is not accessible to its child or another component. It is accessible only to that component. You learned use state. Means what? You are using use state. Use state means, are you creating the state? No, you are using the state. When it is created, are you using the state or creating the state? Use state is not creating state, it is using the state. That means a local state is already configured. A local state is already configured. That local state we have to invoke, and we have to use the local state. In that, we can store any data. The data is accessible only for that component, not to child components, not to another component. That means a local conf. Okay. Next, important. What else will happen? A component is created, a local state is configured. It is configured. Next, what else you have observed? So, what else you have observed is, when a component along with local state, if it is a controlled component, props also created. That means if it is a controlled component is controlled by the data coming from the parent. That means props also must be ready at the time of creating component, because props are passed as properties. That means at the time of creating, memory is allocated. That means if it is a controlled component, then props are configured. Props are created. That means the properties are created. That is the second one. I'll just zoom only this part first to make you understand. That means an component object is created, a local state is configured, and props are created. Okay, what else? What else can happen in the component creation phase? What else can happen in the component creation phase? In the component creation phase, if a component is using context is also created. Context is not internally created. If you learnt already, create context. Create context where we design, create context we define globally outside. That means If explicitly a context is defined, the context is also created. That means if component is using explicit context, because context is not internal, context is explicitly created. So if component is using explicit context, then context is created. That means a local state is created, props are created, and the context is also created. The context is also created. So at the time of creating component, so it will do all these options. The first time while creating component, it will do all these actions. After that, what will happen is, after creating, next what will happen is, after creating the means object created, state is configured, props are defined, context is also created. After that, what it will do is, it renders the UI. That means what will happen, the UI is rendered, and when UI is rendered, it is the general user interface, because you know that component function must return. Already we discussed that component function cannot be void. What it returns, every component function must return what it should return, JSX. It renders the JSX. That means it renders the UI. It is going to render the UI. That means the initial user interface is rendered. That means what happens here is, after doing this, one phase will happen here. And what is that phase? Render phase will happen. Render phase will, that means this component will undergo render. So I'll just keep it simple. That means this, after this, a render phase will fire up. And this render phase is going to render your component to the client. That means the component is rendered into the client. Actually, this is nothing but the client browser. So the component is rendered into the client. So this is requested and it is rendered. The component is rendered into the browser. Actually, this is browser. Into the browser is rendered. So that means first time when you request a component, first time the component will render. It is going to render the component. Okay. After initial UI is rendered, after that component will have another phase. After component is created, second phase is component mount phase will happen. That means after the component created, the component mount phase will happen. Mount phase is nothing but loading the component. That means first component is created, initial output is rendered. After that, what happens is the component mount phase is executed. Component mount phase, I told you already that generally, if we want to define any actions at the time of mounting, we write in use effect. Am I right? That means we define in use effect. Use effect indicates what action to perform at the time of mounting. So component mount phase, what will happen in this mount phase? At the time of mounting, what it is going to do? Tell me, what are the actions you have seen in the mount phase? What are the actions you have seen in the mount phase? After creation, the mount phase will come. What happens in the mount phase? What are the activities expected to perform in the mount phase? Generally, first thing is in the mount phase. So you can set state. I told you cannot set state while creating. I already showed you the problem also. That means when we learnt about state, I showed you that state is not set at the time of creation. After creating, component will mount. So that means what you can do, you set a state. Okay, what else will happen in the mount phase? That mount phase, what else will happen? It will set the state. After that, what it is going to do is not only that, at the mount phase, it is going to perform set properties also. Set props with values if component is controlled. If it is a controlled component, when the properties are set, properties need some value. When the properties are set, the properties are set in which phase? Mount. That means every component needs a property and property needs a value. The value is set at the time of mounting, not at the time of creating. At the time of creating, state is configured, properties are configured, but the values are not sent into it. When the values are sent, values are sent, values are sent into that by using props. And in which phase it is sent? Mount. That means in the mount phase, the values are sent. In the mount phase, the values are sent. Another important point is in the mount phase, what will happen is means what are other activities happen in the mount phase. We can set state, we can set the prop. If component is using, if component is using context, so its values are assigned. If component is using context, then the context values are assigned. We will assign the context with value. You know, you learned that every component has a context and can use the context. So at the time of mounting, what it will do, it can assign value into the context. You learned about route context also. Route context is also assigned with the value with the time of what? Mounting, not creating. After creating mount, it will do. One more option is events. Events are registered. You can say registered or subscribed with handlers. Events are registered or subscribed with handlers. Events are registered and subscribed with handlers. That means you are writing button click. So button have on click. On click, it should use a function called handle click. That means I told you event related definition I given. What is event? One technical definition I given. Event is a message sent by sender to its subscriber. Event follows a mechanism called observer. Event mechanism. Delegate mechanism means it is an function pointer. That means event is a function with a handler. Which function on which handler should execute? The registration will happen at mount. That means the events are connected with their handlers at the time of mounting. that is called event register. That means which event on which element it should perform, they are registered at the time of mounting. That means while mounting, it will check you return on click, handle click. It will check where is that handle click and it will connect. That means all the events are registered or subscribed with the handler. This will happen in the mount. And other activities, So what other activities you done? So request data from API. Am I right? Accessing data from API, we return Axios, right? Where we recommend that to happen in the mount phase. In the mount phase, we recommend it to happen. That means in the mount phase, we have to request from API. So accessing data store already will. That means whatever data you bring from API, it is set into the local state. All these will happen in which phase? Mount. That means what is the mount phase? The purpose of mount phase is nothing but define the actions like set state, set values into properties, set values into context, register the events. You have to register the events and request the data from. All these activities are performed on mount. After that, what will happen is, that means after the component is mounted, it will render again. It is going to render again. This is what generally the problem with React. Lot of re-renders. That means when created, it will render. And when mounted, it will render. This is the headache with React. Lot of re-renders. If there are so many re-rendering, then performance issues will come. Unnecessarily, it should not render every time. So data will be lost between re-renders. We need to take some precautions to remember the data and use the data. And very important is no component will render again. Initially, while creating component will render. After mounting, component will render. Okay. After mounting, next phase is after component is mounted. The next phase is component will have an update phase. Component will have an update phase. After mount, component will have an update phase. What are the activities performed in update phase? In update, what it will do? First thing, when the update phase will fire up, generally when the update phase will fire up is when user started some interaction. That means drop down changed, text box changed, slider changed, some event fires up. That means what will happen on update? So what will happen? Event triggers the function using handler. That means all the events will trigger. Button click. That means whenever you click a button, whenever you type anything, that means when any event will identify that as an update phase. On update phase, what will happen? Event will trigger. All the events will fire up. Change, text box change, or button click, everything will happen on which phase? Update. And what else will happen? On update phase, it can update state. What else it can update? It can update context. What else it can update? It can update. So it can update what else? It can update props. If it is a controlled component, it can update props. One more important thing here. So here I I'm adding few more points in the mount phase. Actually, in the mount phase, some more happens. What happens is, those are general, so are not explained, but better to have. What is that? Already you saw that event bind. That means event binding will happen, style binding will happen, class binding will happen. Understood? Class binding will happen, and data binding will happen. But this is which binding? One way, na? One way data binding will happen. All these will happen in that phase only. So all that will happen in that particular phase. I will move a little bit. All these will happen in the mount phase only. In the mount phase only, event binding will happen, style binding, class binding, data binding, everything will happen. What is meant by event binding? Events are registered with their handlers. What is style binding? Styles are applied to elements. CSS classes are applied to elements. What is data binding? The data in state is binded with the UI elements and it is rendered. The output you will see, data is present in text box, data is present inside paragraph, ordered list table. All this will happen on which phase? Mount. Now on update phase, what will happen? On update phase, it can update. So it can update state, it can update context, it can update classes, right? Another very important is two-way binding will happen. Two-way data binding will happen. You know two-way data binding. What is two-way data binding? Two-way data binding is nothing but two-way data binding is collecting the data from the UI and updating into the data source. All these activities will happen on update. That means actually when anyone explains about component phases, they start with component update and unmount. But before component mount, first component is created. So, but we don't consider phase means generally what we experience. So mounting experience, update experience, unmount is an experience. Actually, so many more things will happen, but not required. These are enough. You will not find these all points anywhere on internet. Why? Even official website also will not show all this. Even official website, they will show only 3 points: mount, update, and unmount. In between, render. Only they will explain. But see, why we have to know all this, and why we know all this? Because you people are learning Angular, React like libraries. We have seen their evolution. That means we were training people on technologies like Knockout.js, Backbone.js, jQuery, all these technologies which were there before these React, Angular were born. Right? Before they were born, we were manually these phases. As developers who have 15-20 years experience in web designing, they know that any web component is not Angular, React. JavaScript also have web components. Only the point you never learn them. I told you components are not in React, Angular. Generally people say that React is component based, Angular is component based. JavaScript also have components. JavaScript also have components. Only the point is we don't take risk in using them, because those days gone. In the early days, they were good. But now we have better technologies. We are not using JavaScript component. JavaScript have web components. That means you create your own button. You can create your own text box. You can create your own calendar using JavaScript. We have component. We can reuse them. Right? But those are not required. Earlier, why for experienced people these questions asked? Because experienced people have worked with these phases manually in their early days. And now React Angular like technologies, what they are doing, they are already managing this internal. That means what is the developer's benefit is he don't need to write all this. They are internally managed. Earlier we have to write them. That means we have to write a mount phase, we have to write an unmount phase, we have to write an update phase. Manually you have to do that. That's the reason for a fresher, they will not ask that what will happen in mount. That is too much. If they are asking too much, that's your bad luck. That means they are asking such depth about the concept, your bad luck as a fresher. But these are for experience. Because earlier we have done this manually, now React Angular are doing internal. That's the reason for experienced people, this is a very common question. Like explain what are the actions happen mount phase, unmount phase, which is not even given of in official website. In their official website also, they don't give all the clarity that what will happen on these phases. They will just give some points. Because low level architecture, no need. But for developers at experience level, it is required. So the mount phase, update phase, what activities will perform. And very important is after the update, what will happen is it is going to render again. It is going to render again. After update phase, every update it will render. That is risky. That means, so you have a button click, you have a drop down change, you have a slider change. For every event, it will render everything again. That's not great idea. It will render even the child component again. It is going to render the child components again. That is not good. It is going to render child again, which I will show you how to prevent all these. We will see. That is what we are going to learn, right? So many re-renders, so many re-renders on after creation render, after mount render, and after update, it will render. After that, what will happen is we have one more phase, and this phase is component have an unmount phase. Component have an unmount phase. So generally, when this unmount phase will occur, that means when the unmount phase will happen, what is its concept? When the unmount phase is going to work, unmount phase is nothing but until the component is open, component you are watching, it is available. Unmount phase will happen. A component will unmount when you move from that component to another. That means usually when a component unmounts, when user is moving from one component to another. When user is moving from one component to another through any medium, through routing, through link, anything. If he is moving from one component to another, what will happen? What will happen in unmount is, see, first thing, so events are unregistered. Events are unregistered. When you are moving from one component to another component, events are unregistered. Disconnect all the events. After that, what will happen is state is removed. Whatever memory is allocated for local state, it is removed. Context is removed. Context is removed. Props will reset. All the properties will reset to the default. Earlier, what they were having, it will reset to the default. That means the state is removed, events are unregistered, and context is removed. Properties will reset, and what it will unload all libraries connected. So you can say all unload all connected libraries. all the connected libraries will unload. Formic, Yup, or Axios, whatever libraries you are using, they will unload the libraries. So that is the reason many times the question is why we cannot access state of one component in another. Why it is not accessible? For example, I will tell you. See, means general concept I will tell you. Function f1. We have a function f2. Two functions are there. Now, in this we have var x equal to 10. I'm using document.write f1 x is equal to the x value. Okay. After that, I will put a break. Now here I am using f2 x is equal to x. Now we are called f1 and we are calling f2. Now what is the point? Now there is an error. X is not, there is an error. This x is a variable of function 1. Is it accessible here? Why it is not accessible? Why it is not accessible? Why x is not accessible in function 2? Suppose I declared with let constant or var, right? It is not accessible through anyone. Why it is not accessible? Inside the function means what? Is function x to access outside? Is function 1 restricting x to access outside? It is restricting only inside? It is restricting only inside? No, it is not restriction. If it is restriction and I try to access in outside the function, it should show me that x is not allowed. It should show me a message saying that x is not allowed to access. Why allowed to access? I am restricting. Function 1 is restricting, then if function 1 is restricting x, then the error message should be that it is not allowed. You are not allowed to access x. But see the error message. When we run this, you see x is working in function 1, but in function 2 it is showing message. What is the message? X is not defined. Not defined. I expected that x is not allowed. According to your definition, you said that x is restricted. If x is restricted, it is not allowed. It is saying that x is found means not found means it is saying that x is no longer there. Why it is no longer there? Because here the memory and here the memory ends. That means the function 1 memory deleted. If function 1 memory is deleted, how you can access it? Right? If function 1 memory is deleted, there is no memory called x, then how you will access it? That means majority of interviews, when we ask this question, every time we will see, if I ask what is let, what is const, what is var, people say that it is block scope, it is restricted inside the block. No, it's not restriction. It is not restriction. That means you see now here, that is the key point. You learned function closures and all. Already in JavaScript, you people learn all these points actually. Suppose you know what is the point here is generally. So you know that we can have a return x, right? What is the meaning of return x? Generally, if I ask what is the meaning of return x, because in JavaScript we already teach this, I'm just explaining. Usually, normally, when function 1 is returning x, people say that function is returning x, right? That means what it is doing, it is returning x. So that means it is returning. If I ask what is the purpose of a function with return, then people say that it returns a value. Function with return, people say that it will return a value. Then interview will ask, what you are saying, return is a jump statement. Return is what kind of statement? Break, return, what kind of statements? Jump statement. How you say that jump statement returns value? That jump statement returns a value. That's wrong concept. That means it is return. Function with return is not returning value. Actually, what is the meaning of return? So simple point is, here a memory is allocated for the function, right? In that memory, x is stored as how much? 10. After that, what happens is, after that, what is happening is, when it comes here, generally, when it comes here, the memory is destroyed. If the memory is destroyed, whatever memory allocated for function is not available. Now, what is this doing here is return x. What it is doing is return is used to jump the function from here. It stops there. You know that return terminates. Can a void function have return? Yes, voice function also can have return. Void function can have return. You have a wrong idea about returns actually. For example, I will show you. Let's prove the point here. See, simple. So suppose we have a function f1. So it is a void function. You see it is a void na? It is a void function. In that document dot write, I say statement 1. That means line 1. Okay. And I'm using statement 2, 3, 4. That means I'm using statement 2, statement 3, statement 4, statement 5. I'm calling f1 as a function, and you can see that it is going to print all the statements. Now it is a void function. Na? It is a void function. After 3, I will return. I can have a return. Then what return will do? It will terminate. It will terminate the execution. That means compiler cannot reach to 4 and 5. Then what will happen? It will stop at this location. It is a valid one. Right? So can a void function have return statement? Of course, why can't we have? We can have. Return statement is not for returning values. That is your wrong understanding. Return is a jump statement. It is a jump statement. Now, what is the concept here? That means, what is the purpose of return? It makes the code unreachable. Means whatever you write after return is not reachable to compiler. It is not reachable to compiler. So what will happen now is, here I am defining some var x equal to 10, and I will put here return x. What will happen when I do like this? What is the concept? Simple. What will happen in this case is, here memory is allocated. The memory is allocated. In the memory, it is having x equal to how much? 10. After that, what will happen is, when it comes here, return will terminate. Terminate means without ending the function memory, it stops. Without ending the function memory, when it stops, memory is still available. Memory is still available. Now this x will be stored inside this memory. That means what will be the memory name? Memory name is f1. In that f1, it will store the 10. That means usually function without return, what will happen? Void means what will happen? It will discard the memory. And return means it keeps the memory alive. What is at same function memory to store the data? The function related data can be stored in the same function memory. Can we access this memory outside anywhere and use it? I can access anywhere and use it. I can access anywhere and use it. That means this function f1 is acting as a function and as a variable. It is performing the functionality and it is storing the result. So is returning the value? It is not returning the value. It is just terminating the function without destroying the memory. That means the memory is still available, so that you can access that function memory anywhere. You can access the function memory everywhere. So what is the purpose of return? Not to return values. Return is a jump statement. Everybody will prove you wrong anywhere in the world of programming. If you say return will return a value, 100% they will prove you wrong. Why? Because return is jump statement. It is not to return values. Break, return, these are jump statements, right? So technically, what is the point? When you move from one component to another component, the memory allocated for the component is destroyed. That is the reason. What is the problem? The problem is that is the reason you observe carefully. What happens is, so in the function components, whatever components you done, it will return this UI. It will return the UI. UI you can see, but whatever the data allocated, it will be deleted. It will be deleted. When you move to next component, what will happen? Next component UI will come and the previous component memory is deleted. I will show practically. We will see that. Practically, we can see that. That means when a component usually unmounts, the component will unmount when you are moving from one component to another. Or you close the application. When you close the application, component unmounts. Because the component unmount will delete all the memory traces. That's the reason the memory of one component is not accessible to another. Right? If you child component, they can access. How they can access? Through props or through context, they can access. But outside, that is deleted. You are moving from one component another, it will unmount. And there is nothing to render. What will happen? Automatically the second one will render. This is very important phase. That means these are all the different actions performed. So I will share this. So life cycle of component. I will share this as a diagram into the classroom, right? So what is the main issue in this component life cycle? That means component life cycle have how many phases? 3 phases. 3 basic phases: mount phase, unmount phase, update. Mount, update, and unmount. On mount, all the initializations will happen. On creation, initializations will happen. On mount, initial values are set. So data binding, style binding, class binding, event binding. Two-way binding will happen on which phase? Update. Whenever any change occurred, then it will render again. When component will unmount when you are moving from one component to another. I will show you the problems here. Later you will understand also. Let's see the problem here. This is just one concept. Okay, because temporarily I will not disturb this one. What is our previous project? I will open. Okay, our previous project is this one, React Fashion App. Okay, I will open this one. Okay, you see now I'm just adding one option. So export function. So opt demo, something like this. Render, return, a div. In the main, we will have opt demo. We are using this opt demo. Okay. And see, this is a parent component. That's a parent component. In that we have a button. Mounting and all, I will tell you later. We will see that point. We'll see. So first we will use this one. Yeah. In the button, and I will say login, and we have button register. Okay. I will just put a horizontal line. And I will just put here component, constant view, set view. Use state, it is empty. Okay. Above, we have two components. So export function login is one. Return a simple div and heading simply say login. Okay, one more I will copy. Register. First, I will show you what is mount and unmount, different options. You see, register, this is register. And observe carefully. Every component have a mount. We are giving use effect. Use effect defines actions to perform at the time of mounting. What I will do is console.log. I will say login component mounted. Login component mounted, and it will return. This return uses a function. This is going to use a function. What it will do is console log login component unmounted. Unmounted. That means unmount is defined using return. It is defined by using return. Inside use effect, you have a return which is used to define unmount. It is used to define unmount. All these days you are using only mount, right? Okay, I will copy this, and this is login. Same I will put here register. Register component mounted and register component unmounted. Okay, I am giving this. Okay, now we have function login click. On login click, set view as login. Login component will mount. So login component will mount. Similarly, we have a function. This is register click. On register click, actually set view which component register. And this have on click. On click, this is login click. And this will have on click. This is register click. And here I want to display the view. The view should render there. Observe carefully now. Let's start this. Okay, it started. Observe, here we have a parent component login register. Right click, inspect, and go to the console. Currently nothing is mounted. I click on login and see login component is mounted. I requested login, login component is mounted. Now I click on register. What will happen? First, login will unmount. After that, register will mount. That means what will happen? The memory allocated for login will clean up. After that, register will mount. You see now, I click on register. Register will not mount first. What will happen? It will unmount the login. After that, register. Understood? That means how this phase works. First, login is deleted, then register will come. That's the reason the data of login is not accessible to register. Any action performed in login, any data you stored in login is not accessible to register. That's the reason you need state management techniques. Like through route parameter, you can pass data from one component to another, or through cookies, we pass data. Why we need state management? Because HTTP is stateless. Memory allocated, transaction performed, memory is cleaned up. Memory is newly allocated every time. So that is good for application, but difficult in transporting data across components. That's the reason we need a lot of state management techniques for transporting the data. So when I click login now, what will happen? First register will unmount. After that login will mount. When I click login, and you can see that register will unmount. After that login will mount. And remember to test this, make sure that in the main React strict mode is removed. Don't put the strict mode. Understood? Make sure that strict mode is removed. Because if strict mode is there, it will execute 2 times. We need to remove the strict mode. Right? Then you can see clearly the mount and unmount phases. Right? So this is just a point to prove that component will not directly mount. First, it will clean up the existing and it will mount. Right? This is one basic. So I will just copy here. This is one concept. Just observe here. This is an example, because in the next level I will explain what is use effect and all detailedly. We will see that. This is one example of mount and unmount. We are defining mount and unmount. I will show you another problems I'm showing, concept I'm showing. Examples we will implement later. I told you that re-renders are very risky. Lot of re-rendering will happen. See the point here. Let's do that also now. This is cleanup, register, login, not required. I'll delete all these things. Okay, fine. Now here we are having a button. So for example, we have constant. So count, set count is equal to use state. Just roughly it is 0. And button on click, what should happen? Set count. So it will be count plus 1, increase by 1. Actually, it should happen on click. Just roughly, I'm just using the function. Okay. Now, what we will do is, we'll say click, displaying some count. Okay. Now, see, there is a child component. So, export function, child component is present. Return, and this is a child component. We have a child component, and we are accessing the child component below. That means here below I am accessing the child. Oh, sorry. Below here I am accessing the child component and showing. And see here in the parent, I will put console.log. This is parent rendered. Remember, I am not writing in mount phase. I am writing directly inside component. Means at the time of component creation itself, it will render, which I already told you. Here also I will give console.log. So child component rendered. That's what we are giving. Parent and child components are rendered. And you see here. So I will refresh here. Oh, some problem. Too many re-renders, infinite loops. That's fine. We know that. So we will use here a callback function. That callback function will set the count. That will be no problem. Now you see here what is happening. Parent is rendered, child is rendered. That's okay. Good. That means parent loaded. In the parent, we are loading child. Child is also loaded. Okay. Now in the child, I am not having any changes. Means I am not sending any data, properties, context, nothing. Child is just child. We are not doing any changes in child. But when I click this button in parent, what will happen is count is increased. Parent rendered, that's okay. Parent rendered, okay. Why child rendered? Child is not changing. Child is same now. Parent is changing. That means parent is updating 1, 2, 3, it is rendering, that's fine, very good. But why child is rendering again? Child is not changing, then why you are rendering again? Only parent is changing. You see, in parent, when I click this, 2 will come. It's rendered child again. That's not great idea. This is big issue. That means all these days this is happening. You are just using child component means that's not good idea. That is not good idea. You are unnecessarily rendering the child. If child is having some props, if child is having some context, it should update itself using the data from parent. Then rendering is fine, no problem. That is not an issue. But here unnecessarily it is rendering. Then we have to take precautions to avoid re-rendering. See what I can do now. What I will do is I will create this function constant. So as that means this function as React have a memo. Through React memo, we can configure this. Later, I will explain the functions and all the points. So now what memo uses a callback. This React memo uses a callback, and here it can return. So it can return. So some message. What is the message? It will return a message saying that child. And here I am writing the message console.log. What is it? Child component rendered. Child component rendered. I am giving the message. So here, observe carefully. Now you can see that parent and child component are rendered. I given child component to React memo. What is this React memo? Is it will keep the child component in the cache. It will keep the child component in the cache, and it will not allow to re-render again and again until or unless some changes are happening inside the child. When I click on this button, what will happen? Count is increased. Parent is rendered. You can see parent is rendering 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, but child is not rendering. This is better. This is better in performance. That means parent is rendering, but child is not rendering now. Why? Because there is no change in child. Why you are rendering it? Previously, you are just using parent, child, not good. That's not good. Just we need to make some changes in our approach. Some little changes. You change that into memo, then it will be better. It will be better. So these kind of things we need to learn to make the performance better. These techniques we will learn now. What are the various techniques, how to handle them, we will see them, right? So why I explained this life cycle? To make you understand that there are a lot of re-renders in React. Everything re-renders. We have to avoid. So then if you take all the precautions, avoid re-renders, then your application will perform better. This is called optimization, right? React optimization. It's not a concept, but optimization is what senior developers are very much involved in. You build and give to them, they will take care about optimization. That means they will not ask you to optimize until or unless you are the person involved in everything. Generally, they will say that just design and give to us, then we will take care about optimization. We will implement certain techniques and we will make it in such a way that it will improve the page load times. Right? These kind of techniques we need to implement. And for that, we need to learn some important hooks. Right? Those we will see in next session. Monday, we will do that. Monday, we are going to learn about all React hooks concept. How these hooks are helpful, how to use them, what are different hooks, how we can optimize application, everything. Monday we'll see. Okay, right.